The steel wheels of the train clattered across frozen tracks as Heinrich Müller leaned against the cold window, his breath fogging the glass. It was February 1943, and Müller, a captured sergeant from the Afrika Korps, had just left the battlefields of North Africa behind. What he saw from that train window shook him to the core. Stretching for miles, lights glittered across the American landscape. Entire cities glowed as if war had never touched them. Electric lamps lined streets in neat rows, neon signs flickered advertisements, and factory smokestacks rose into the night sky with windows burning brightly. For Müller, who came from a Germany living under blackout orders and fuel shortages, this was almost impossible to believe. Like many others packed into the train, Müller had been told America was weak. German propaganda described the United States as soft, divided, and unprepared for serious war. Yet here he was, rolling past miles of illuminated highways and endless streams of electricity flowing into farms, factories, and neighborhoods. The Germany he left behind rationed every drop of fuel and carefully guarded electricity. In America, it seemed, abundance flowed like water. The other prisoners crammed inside the freight cars shared his disbelief. These were hardened veterans who had fought in France, Poland, and the deserts of Tunisia. They had seen the might of the Third Reich at its peak. But nothing in their experience prepared them for this display of energy and prosperity. Some prisoners argued that it had to be a trick. Surely the Americans had designed this train route to impress and confuse them. Others insisted the lights couldn't possibly be real. But the truth was undeniable. What they were witnessing wasn't staged. This was everyday America in 1943. The shock was even greater when the prisoners learned how far behind Germany was in comparison. Back home, whole cities sat in darkness to avoid Allied bombers. Factories cut power at night to save resources. Families lit candles instead of light bulbs. In contrast, Americans still played baseball under floodlights. Broadway theaters stayed open, and factories never stopped running. The difference wasn't only in numbers, though the numbers were staggering. The Tennessee Valley Authority alone generated more power than all of Germany. The Rural Electrification Administration had spent the last decade bringing electricity to farms that had never seen a light bulb, and private companies kept building plants and power lines to keep up with demand. For the German soldiers on that train, the psychological impact was devastating. They had believed they were fighting a powerful but overstretched enemy. Instead, they discovered a nation so wealthy and productive that it could fight across two oceans while keeping its citizens comfortable at home. When the prisoners finally arrived at camps in places like Texas, Minnesota, and Alabama, their shock only deepened. The barracks were heated and well lit. Mess halls served food portions that exceeded what many German soldiers had eaten before the war. Recreation centers even allowed evening activities under bright electric lamps. To men raised on scarcity, the casual waste was incomprehensible. Guards left lights burning in empty rooms, fans ran constantly, and buildings were heated not just for survival, but for comfort. To Americans, this was normal. To the Germans, it was evidence of a strength so vast it seemed undefeatable. As prisoners were assigned to farm or factory labor, the realization grew stronger. They worked in sawmills, rail yards, and fields lit by electric floodlights that made night look like day. They saw machines powered by electricity working continuously, even when not needed. In Germany, this would have been impossible. Slowly, the prisoners began to accept the truth. America's strength was not just in its military, but in its economy and way of life. Unlike Germany, which demanded total sacrifice, America could fight a global war while still offering abundance at home. By 1944, even the most loyal Nazi believers in these camps began to question everything they had been taught. If democracy and capitalism could produce such wealth and power, perhaps their own system was built on lies. For many, the war was already lost before Germany's surrender in May 1945. The sight of America's endless lights had shown them the future, and it was a future Germany could never match.